Hello, Lamer Gamers. This is Simply Travis for the Lamer Gamers podcast. Welcome to the Xbox Beta Bonanza episode. And, by the way, I'm back. I've been on the receiving end of a wombo combo from life in the form of a back injury and then influenza B. And ain't nobody got time for that. Now, I will say, you may hear the occasional cough or sniffle coming from my general direction during this cast, but honestly, I'm just glad to be back up and running. Now, I've missed you fine folks that are scattered across the land listening to our podcast, and, well, today I got a lot of stuff to talk about. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about all things beta. Now, I don't mean the kind of beta that, as an insult somebody might call you in a political internet argument on Reddit. I'm talking about beta games and, well, operating systems for the Xbox One. I've recently signed up for Xbox Insider to check out if the new user face I keep seeing people talk about is really all it's cracked up to be. Then after, I'll grab some magical playing cards to cast a fire spell as I burn through Phantasy Star Online's 2 closed beta. To finish things off, I'll sign up for a sketchy operation to modify my body because I want to join a cybernetic fight club in Bleeding Edge, also in beta. The match begins in 3, 2, 1, go! Now, before we jump into the Xbox Insider Beta, if you like the stuff we're doing here, make sure to share this podcast with a friend and hit subscribe on whatever fancy podcast player you're using. I personally prefer Podcast Addict. You can find more at www.lamergamers.com/subscribe. So, first up on my list of stuff to talk about, I signed up for the Xbox Insider. Now, why did I do this? So, I'm a recent convert from Nintendo, and the Xbox user interface makes me hate everything. I don't know what in the world they were thinking when they involved shoulder buttons as a way to slog through picking a game to play. As a lifelong Nintendo enthusiast, I've always been able to start up a system and get a game going like within seconds. Nothing, no playing around. No menus, just using a control pad and a button. So the Xbox One, it involves thinking, instead of just going left or right or going to a system menu, it involves thinking on an X-axis and a Y-axis, which makes no sense because it's an Xbox, not a Y-box. So I just never really caught on. And then there's a home button that introduces, or the X button, which isn't the X button. It's like a button that's in the center at the top that has an X on it, but it's not the same as the X button you press on the right hand. It's confusing as all get out. So I switched to the Insider Hub, and you go in and you sign up for the app, and you had to wait a little bit. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but is the Xbox Insider version of this, the beta, is it better? Yeah. They get rid of that stupid left and right movement in the user interface and only kind of like go up and down. I'm not having to like press the right shoulder button, which I don't like shoulder buttons anyway. Even in fighting games, if there's a shoulder button move you're supposed to use, I usually switch it to the trigger because it's just a more comfortable button. So there are shortcuts, whenever you go up and down, there are shortcuts right at the beginning that will lead you to other stuff you want to get to. Like if you want to go to the games that you play, you can actually go to the games button instead of like having to go to some weird menu, or maybe sometimes it pops up in the front like the regular Xbox One thing does. Now, also, Game Pass doesn't require you to press the right shoulder button. You just press down and boom, you're in your Game Pass goodies. Outside of that, though, I'll be honest. There aren't a whole bunch of differences that I really noticed right off the bat. As a whole, the system does seem a little bit zippier. And I noticed that Witcher 3 specifically, which is a game that has a lot of loading times, Even the sorry for the cough. Even like going through your inventory and stuff takes a little while, and it's not quite as zippy as I'd want it. However, The Witcher 3, I can hold down the power button, turn off my console, then come back to it later, and it starts up automatically. It's beautiful. Now, it doesn't seem like a whole lot. Your system starts fast? Ooh. Well, it's a big deal to me. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be talking to you about it. There's something about that immediacy of jumping into a game that I like. I don't want this whole preamble before you start up a game or a slow startup time. The longest thing I want to sit through is maybe like the GameCube logo with a little, 10-second startup. And then boom, I want to be in a game. I don't want to like play around the whole time. Let's get this show on the road. I don't have time to waste. If I'm going to have to sit and wait for a game, I'm just going to move on. Or I'm going to go watch YouTube or something. Or listen to a podcast. Yeah. Anyway, so now that I've given my little lowdown on what I like about the Insider program, well, how do you jump onto it? Well, first, you need to enter the labyrinth known as your Xbox One and find the App Store. How do you get there? There's an App Store. I think you got to press some shoulder buttons, maybe up, down, A, B, A, B. I'm not 100% sure how you get there because I don't have the regular Xbox One thing, but you should be able to find the App Store, right? Just go to the Windows Store. I think you got to press the shoulder button 15 times to get there, and then search for Xbox Insider Hub. So the next step is you have to go into the labyrinth and fight a proverbial minotaur that is, trying to fight you on the Microsoft Store. Because have you ever like opened up the wrong thing and then all of a sudden a video starts playing incredibly loudly? That's the minotaur in this parable or simile or metaphor. Metaphor, that's the word I'm looking for. Now, find the Xbox Insider Hub app. Download it, sign up for it, then wait. You're not going to magically like be thrown a new operating system. Apparently, they got to do some stuff behind the scenes. Probably involves a workshop of gnomes. I'm not 100% sure what goes on, but I basically had my new fancy Xbox operating system within a day. Now, there are different levels of participation with this because it's not just the Xbox beta. There is a whole realm of beta-ness, but it sounds more like something off of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. First up, Omegas. That's open to anyone. That's basically what you're going to be getting. And receive system updates shortly before a general audience release. So that's probably what I'm on. I'm not 100% sure. It didn't tell me. Next, Delta. That's open up to any Xbox Insider with a tenure of 1 or more months that has reached Xbox Insider level 2 or higher. Sounds a little like Secret Society-ish. Maybe it is. I don't know what I might have stepped into now that I'm reading this. Anyway, don't drink any Kool-Aid if somebody in Xbox Insider tries to give it to you. Depending on certain edge cases in which further attention is required from alpha or beta rings, Delta Insiders may receive system updates before beta, though this is not a common scenario. Additionally, while early system updates are not guaranteed across the Delta ring, all Delta Insiders will receive the update prior to general availability. So, you've signed up for Xbox Insider Beta, but you're really an Omega or a Delta. Now, if you want to be a Beta, open Xbox Insiders with a program tenure of 3 or more months. I guess I'm going to have to try out Delta for you folks. And you need an Xbox Insider XP level of 5 or higher. So I guess I got to do some stuff. You can like leave bug reports and write reviews and stuff. This ring receives updates shortly after alpha. Then finally, if you really want to get in there and just get all the nitty gritty stuff, there is an alpha level. That's only for invite only people. You had to be super high level to get into there. And they basically get all the goodies. Now, comes the thing. I'm telling you all about this fancy operating system that's simpler than whatever the heck garbage Xbox One is throwing at us. And now, don't get me wrong. If you're like listening to the show thinking, oh, man, this guy hates Xbox, the Nintendo nerd. Well, guys, honestly, it needs some work. That's why they're doing these preview rings and all this other stuff. But Here's the problem. They are betas. You're going to run into some bugs. So here's positive and negatives. Positive. You get updates, and updates are generally good. I like updating things. My wife, on the other hand, absolutely hates it with a passion. She will not let me touch her phone and update it until it like forces it, and then she complains to me. Anyway, so updates are generally good until something happens you don't like. Then it's bad, and that's pretty much it. Do you like experiencing stuff and reporting bugs on things? If so, well, join in. If you can't be bothered, and for some reason you and the Minotaur inside this labyrinthian Xbox tunnel, have hit it off, and now you're talking about getting an apartment together in a place that's not really that cheap but won't break the bank, well, more power to you and Minotaur guy. But I'm going to continue taking my chances with this beta stuff because, well, I'm saving time starting up the system and basically saving a headache trying to find what I want. All right, so that's kind of my little spiel on the Xbox One Insider. It's been good stuff. I've enjoyed it. Let's move on to the next beta thing. Now, the next one is a 10-year-old game that's just now in beta. That's right. I'm going to talk to you about Phantasy Star Online 2 after the break. Now, before we get started jumping into some Phantasy Star Online beta gameplay, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at parallaxmedia.one. They're a good old school gaming journalism website that's decided to help spread our podcast around to the masses. So drop by and check these guys out. Plus, they finally started throwing our little write-ups on the show on there. So, Phantasy Star Online Beta 2. I had a 102.5 degree temperature when I first started playing this game for you people. That's right. I'd gotten the flu the day or two before the beta I released. I think it was the day before. And I still had a fever. But I played this game for you. I dealt with the pains and aches and slings and arrows of misfortune and influenza B to go online and play this anime game. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what it is. So if you've never played Phantasy Star Online before, it is an old RPG made by Sega that, well, it used to just be a standalone RPG, but then they made like a massive multiplayer online version years ago. I don't know, 15 years ago? It's a long time ago. But hey, it released on the GameCube, and that's how I know about it, because I used to play it on there, and I had a good time playing it. Now, if you don't know anything about this game, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to read through the backstory. I'm going to give you an idea of the races in the game. I'm also going to tell you about the classes, how was my playthrough, and stuff like that. So, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and start with the story. Here's the backstory. Welcome to Oracle, an intergalactic fleet at the forefront of a deep space travel and exploration. You are the newest recruit of ARCS, a task force dedicated to surveying and monitoring the biospheres of inhospitable planets, while scouting for signs of a corrupted force that seeks to shroud the universe in darkness. Now, the home base for ARCS, that's ARKS, is the fleet of Oracle, comprised of countless city-sized ships inhabited by the denizens of four species. Humans, Numans, Castes, and Dumans? These races come together as ARCS operatives, with each member selecting one of 9 classes and training in combat with 18 different weapons, often enhanced by the manipulation of cosmic energies known as photons. As a member of ARCS, you will train and undertake missions to prepare for a single goal: protecting the universe from the threat of the organization's most prominent enemy, the Fall Spawn. So, that is the core of the game. Now, let's break down these races because some of these races are weird and the names are kind of simple. All right, so first up, you can pick whenever you go make a character, because that's a big part about this game is you can. There's supposed to be this really long or really big range of character customization you can do. Humans, they make for great all-around ARX operatives, as their unique versatility allows them to adapt quickly in all environments, making them able to face challenges head-on. The right mix of physical strength and endurance, in addition to their affinity for photon arts, makes them an excellent fit to take up any class or weapons. And they look like humans. Okay. All right, next up are the Newmans. Newmans. While masters of photon manipulations, Newmans are less favored with health and dexterity. They excel in wielding restorative, or elemental forces, with their unrivaled ability to learn, wield, and resist photon techniques, the result of genetic manipulation of select humans to create a race that excelled in photon aptitude. Newmans are easily identifiable by their sharp and pointy ears. These are the elves of the games. They're space elves. That's pretty much what you need to know. And they do good with, like, spells. I picked a Newman for my first time. All right, next up, castes. Formerly humans or Newmans with weak constitutions but strong photon aptitude. Caste, now, this is C-A-S-T, all capital letters, are the result of the transplant of doomed individuals into stronger artificial frames to enable their survival. While this process somewhat weakens their photon powers and removes their ability to wear some of the latest fashions, yes, the form in which they are now cast excels at ranged or close quarter combat. So basically, they are robots that punch things. Yep. Next up, Doomans. I love Newmans and Doomans. Good lord. Are members of an artificially created race with high potential for the manipulation of photon arts. The most apparent feature they possess is either their unique horns or their chance to have dichromatic eyes. Let's break down that term for the people that aren't art majors or anything like that. Dichromatic means that there's going to be two colors in an eye. Yeah. Anyway, making this race quite distinct from the others inhabiting the ships of the Oracle fleet. These are basically horned cat people with that are monks. That's pretty much the way it breaks down. So, there are a bunch of different classes, and oh my gosh. So, let's go through the classes. So, you can pick a race, right? Well, then you also get to pick a class. Now, for some reason, my classes are not popping up. There we go. All right. So there are a whole bunch of different classes, and then there are specialty classes within the game. So I'm just going to go through. Hunters are going to be your close combat ones, sword, wired lances, and things like that. Rangers are like a ranger in any other game, but they got assault rifles and other stuff, so long range. Force users have nothing to do with Star Wars. They are essentially the magicians in the game, and they have funny hats. That's pretty much it. Bravers are a combo between the short and long range combat. So up close, they fight with the katana, while at distance, they use the bow. So they're essentially, katana shield bow users. Then we have the bouncer. They use soaring blades and jet boots. So they run around flying and stuff and punch things. You have summoners. Now, there are pets in this game. So summoners have this little bitty pet with them. They're essentially kind of like a ranger in a sense that way, though, if you like Dungeons and Dragons. Fighters. Fighters are close combat, of course. Nothing special there. Gunners. A little bit different from rangers. They're not necessarily long range. They like machine guns and stuff like that. And then Tectors. Focusing on, they're kind of like the summoners, but have a little bit more up close fighting capabilities. So think about a dual class, wizard thing. So those are the class for the game. So what did I use? Well, I was a force user because I like wizards. And my character looked like a YouTuber, Jacksepticeye with elf ears, like spot on. It was a little creepy. I'll have to find a picture and show you. And I thought I had a robe. It says male robe, right? It was a freaking dress. As I was playing, I was like, oh man, I don't want this guy running around in a dress, so I switched it over. So I've given you a layout of what's the story, what are the characters you can play as. Well, how does it play? Well, it's very similar to the OG PSO. Expect to go into a level that is going to give you an objective. But that objective changes each time you go into a level, and there's some variations of the monsters. So it's somewhat procedurally generated. At the end of most of your levels, there's going to be a big bad guy that makes the game feel a little Monster Hunter-y, just due to this sheer size difference of said monstery behemoth and the regular characters or the regular monsters. And the regular monsters randomly pop up, by the way, and the game will give you an idea on the mini map, which is just full of all sorts of little dots and doodads and what do you call them, that you will find stuff to go do. Generally, there's going to be 4 people per level. You can go in whenever you choose a level and see if anybody else is playing it. I had no issues on this beta finding people. So, also, the weapons you get, you can either buy or pick up weapons and armor as you fight. You're not really constrained to what you pick up, which is nice. However, leveling system's a bit complex. I'm not quite sure if I understand it yet. There's also a skill tree you assign points to whenever you get some points that also can be reallocated whenever you feel like it. There's a system of armor and weaponry that relies on rarity, so you can occasionally pick up like a sword, gun, staff, or whatever of legend, and then immediately find another legendary one later, or a regular one at the store that's a little bit better. But there are mods, there are different spells, specials to pick up, and then there's some sort of weird Tamagotchi of pain that flies around you or something. It's like a flying robot drone, but you feed it, because that's normal. So not quite sure what it is, but what I'm saying is there's a ton of different leveling systems that you can get lost in right off the bat. Oh, and you can make food. So that there's a whole different thing on there. And so, there's a lot of different stuff, and the good thing is that the tutorial is very thorough. That being said, whenever this game actually releases and it's no longer in beta, I feel like I'm going to forget half of it. The storyline has been fun, if not just a little overly heavy-handed. It's starting to show some of the weirder aspects, like they drag you into this room with this one lady that can tell your future, but she can't intervene, and it's really weird. But overall, I mean, you're going in, you do your base mission, and then, of course, the worst thing ever and all these scary not feldspar, that's like a thing. What were these things called again? Let me scroll up. Fall spawn. These fall spawn monsters show up. But, even though the world's ending, you go back to the hub and it's like nothing ever happened. You can even go to a casino. And, well, I'm not a big fan of casinos. I guess that's basically where your game's microtransactions are. Thankfully, it's separated from the rest of the gaming experience, so I don't know what it is, man. So just as a personal aside, casinos have always been really depressing for me. I live in Texas. Gambling is illegal out here, but we are right next door to Louisiana. And so I've been to a couple casinos in my days. I just don't enjoy it. I tend to people watch and kind of observe what's going on around me a lot. And every time I go to one, I just get depressed. Because somewhere around your third watered down drink or whatever they're handing you, right next, at the penny slot, you're next to an older woman wearing a fanny pack and she's just whittling away at her Social Security check and a glass of cheap wine. Cheap wine, man. I just can't do it. It smells like stale cigarettes in there. It's just not my cup of tea. Anyway, more power to people that love them some casinos. It's just not my scene. Back off the personal subject. All right, let's talk about, is this game approachable for noobs that have never played this before, maybe haven't even done an MMO? Well, what do you think? Let me drink some coffee after you think about it. Yeah, for the most part it is. I was able to come in and get a basic concept of how the game works within a few hours. Having not played it, played a PSO game in over a decade, it came to me pretty quick. There seems to be quite a bit of depth to the leveling system and how you allocate points to your skills or different chips you can find that change your special moves. But, you know, you'll learn that as you play it after the 7,000th hour, because that's how people normally play these kind of games. But in the short time I played, I probably gathered around a dozen or so spells, a couple decent weapons. I can definitely see myself coming back to the game in the future. But I think I'm going to have to recruit some friends. Speaking of which, did you know that we have a Discord new friend that happens to want to play Phantasy Star Online 2 with me? Yeah! Do a search for the Lamer Gamers Podcast Discord and join up, because I need friends that are going to play these Xbox games with me. All right, that's all I got for Phantasy Star Online 2. I'm sure I'll talk more about it in the future. I need to get Rowdy to join in with me and see what he thinks about the game, but he hasn't signed up for that Xbox Insider yet. And unfortunately, to get to the PSO 2 beta, which is now closed, you had to be on the Insider Hub, which is honestly a big part of why I signed up for Insider Hub. It wasn't just the fact that the Minotaur living inside my Xbox was telling me things. Not at all. All right. After this break, we're going to go to our last game, which happens to be on the bleeding edge of MOBA gaming. Now time for the final round of the Beta Bonanza. Bleeding Edge is the latest online multiplayer arena-style game, but with a twist. It's melee-focused, and, well, I really like that idea about the game. So, first impressions. Now, visual impressions, okay? So, I have not followed this game. I saw that there was a beta for it over the weekend, and I was thinking, I've been doing a lot of beta things lately. I'm going to go ahead and hop on this game too. And I'm pretty happy I did. So, visually, the first thing I saw, and, just kind of a side note again, the way we interpret things in the real world, and I talk to people about this a lot, especially angsty, angry teenagers. We tend to see and comprehend things on a visual level before we do on like an auditory level, or even like comprehending something, objectively. So just looking at this game, I think it looks like the artists had a lot of fun. They love color with it. So the character design has some actual variety to it, including different body types for the character. And you kind of get this sense with the way they animate things that, this game is just, it just seems like whoever's running this game was all about fun before necessarily like the edginess factor or anything like that. Going back to what I was talking about, how we interpret things visually and get a concept of how we, our first impressions, I guess you would say. You got to think, when we were humans starting up in society, we tended to, or pre-society, I guess, or pre-civilization, humans didn't necessarily talk in words and things. It was usually utterances and stance. So our brains are kind of wired to understand things visually on a certain level instead of through an auditory sense. So when I saw this game and I saw the play, how it plays, and the way they present the game, that spoke to me in a sense more than necessarily hearing somebody talk about it. Because when you hear the way they talk about the game, it does sound a little bit more boring than actually looking at the way they design it. Anyway, now, one fun thing about the character design, each character is cybernetic, but really you don't read like that they're cybernetic beings in the visual design of this, or the visual cues in the characters. They all have their own personal flair that you might not expect. And I don't know why, but most games that use like a cybernetic character design, they tend to all just look the same, as if the concept of being a cyborg should be the first focal point of the design. They don't do that in Bleeding Edge. It feels like the background story of each character tends to affect how they look and fight more than just being this partially roboticized person. Now, let's look into why they are fighting. Okay, so I'm going to go through and read the background story on this. We're also going to go into how it plays. We're going to talk about the gameplay modes, the classes, and I really want to go into the character overviews. And then finally, is this game worth $30? So let's go ahead. Once I started looking into this background story too, let me see if I can find it real quick. I have so many tabs open, sometimes I get lost whenever I'm talking, so I apologize for that. But the story reminds me a little bit like Street Fighter 2. I don't know what it is about this game, but it has this fun sense about it that is very unique, and the characters are just so colorfully designed. All right, story time. Here goes. The game is set in a futuristic world in the year 2057. World governments have become corrupt and corporate society only looks on. Tired of the system, Damon forms a gang of misfits known as the Bleeding Edge. After taking his revenge on those who wronged him, Damon takes the Bleeding Edge to the underworld of fighting circuits. It is here that he intends to recruit an army of the augmented to the Bleeding Edge and redeem himself for his past actions. Yeah, that's the story. So that's really not, it doesn't sound like that great of a story. It's really not. The character bios are where it's at. They're really wacky, and we'll get to them here in just a bit. So let's talk about how it plays. So, talking about a whole bunch about the story, but how does this play? Well, let me tell you, it's fun. The game considers itself a 4x4 or 4v4 team fighter. So here's actually from the website itself. Experience one-of-a-kind multiplayer that fuses combo mechanics with dynamic third-person action. Team up and execute powerful, synergized attacks to become an unstoppable force in the face of your enemies. Freeze foes in time, control minds, ride missiles, and unleash electrifying guitar solos in a fast-paced, yet strategic combat system that rewards technique, timing, and teamwork. And as silly as I read that, it feels pretty spot on. The game tends to give you the impression of being an Overwatch clone, but it doesn't really play like one. I let my nephew play this game because he's one of those people that really, really get into MOBAs. And he actually used to play League of Legends for a living. The problem was playing League of Legends online and streaming every day got really stressful for him. So, you're always having to perform. You're always having to win, and you're having to keep people entertained. And, win with a whole bunch of random losers that are on your team out of nowhere. But now he does shift work as a pipe fitter and construction dude for a plant and occasionally has to deal with chemical releases while dangling hundreds of feet up in the air. A nice calming job compared to playing video games. But he kept having a problem with playing the game like it was Overwatch, this game, Bleeding Edge. So I told him to start treating it like League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm, and that was the big key. So that gives you a concept of how this plays or how you should approach this game. So, you're doing melee combat, so think about the characters that you would expect from a game like League or Heroes of the Storm. To me, it feels more like Heroes of the Storm in that sense, to where you have your base attacks, you have cooldown attacks, you have 3 per each character, then you have a special, there's ways to dodge, and things like that. But in the beta, there were 2 main gameplay modes. There was Objective, which is, there's usually 3 objectives on the map, and they'll pop up and say they're ready to be captured. And you have to go run over to the objective and capture them. Usually lots of fighting. Honestly, the map feels a little big. I feel like you could do a 6-on-6 and this game would fit a little bit better. Because there were plenty of times where I would capture an objective and you were just so spread out from the rest of the team, nobody can go get it. So that's one play. I preferred Objective. Then there were Cells. Cells is weird. There's these little things that you have to go break that pop up, and you collect these cells. They're like battery cells. Then they turn off after a while where you can't collect them anymore. And then the same places you would go, like defend an objective in the other mode of play, will open up and you have to drop off the cells by standing there for a good 10 seconds and try not to get slapped around in the process. It's a fun mode. It just didn't feel as tight as objective mode did. Now, as you're playing, you'll start off the game and you can pick out of a whole bunch of characters. Now, there are 3 main classes in the game. There is damage, tank, and support. Now, damage characters are going to be your high damage ones, usually with a small health pool. They're also sometimes advanced characters or technique based. Then you have tanks. If you don't know what a tank is, high health, lower on the damage end, but, tanky. Damage sponges. And then finally you have support. That's going to be your heals, shields, and curses. Some of these characters have curses. There's a voodoo guy that's pretty fun. I don't think a person. I think he's a cybernetic snake with a corpse. Yeah, that's a thing. So we'll find out in a minute whenever I read through the backstories, because I haven't read through all of them. All right, so also each character can get different mods that you collect, and they allow you to buff certain skills. You can run 3 mods at a time. So if you have a particular penchant for a positively powerful punch or move, you can focus on that one with certain mods. Also, you can spend in-game money on different boards. Think mounts. So you can get different mounts, essentially, and then you can make you move around faster. And there's some stickers and emotes that can be purchased. All right, so that is basically how the game plays and your classes. So let's go into the character overviews. And that's the big thing I enjoy about this game. So I'm going to go through and break down each character. There's not a whole bunch of characters, but I do think that they are particularly fun. So the first up, we're going to start with Damon, who is a damage character. Now, he is one that is made to be stealthy, and he actually can disappear. He can throw shurikens, hit things with the sword, and jump out of the way. His supers allow you to, called the Death Mark and Shadow Strike, gives extra damage against your marked target, or he can do this crazy, ninja move and fly everywhere. So, here's his background. 26, he's from Hell's Kitchen in New York. Birth date, I love that they even had the birth date on here. It's very, like I said, the bio stuff reminds me of Street Fighter 2. If they would have had the blood type, I would love that, because if you were a kid whenever Street Fighter 2 came out, back when they had game manuals, in the manual, the character bios and all that stuff were inside the manual, and I remember looking like, oh, that's an O-type blood character. Ooh, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, life packs punches. In native New York, Damon John Banks took a lot of hits. Raised alone by a loving and artistic mom, Damon's childhood would abandon him when his mother died from corporate complications. I wonder what that means. Under the new name Damon, graffiti would be his guide, while the system would relentlessly oppose him. But the fight would give him purpose. He would become a gifted coder, a master of martial arts, and would seek redemption against a system and corporate society that failed him. He would form a gang of digital misfits called the Bleeding Edge and unleash the biggest corporate data breach in history. He had his taste of revenge and now seeks retribution as he builds an army of the augmented amidst the underworld fighting circuits. So this guy is why I have LifeLock. Love the data breach stuff. Stop that. So this guy literally has spray paint cans on his arm. He's very colorful. His katana's covered in different paint, and as he swings his sword, paint flies everywhere. Very fun character. Next up, we have Nidhogger. I don't know how to say it, but basically he is... he looks like he would be in the Misfits with silver hair and a guitar that is literally an axe. So his specials, he's high damage. He's another damage character. He has fire breath. So he can catch people on fire. He can power slide and leave a trail of fire. And he has the boomatar. He can throw his guitar and it slows him down. His specials are really fun, though. He can do a death growl because that's super metal, and it silences all nearby enemies. Or he can ride the lightning. And he basically does an epic guitar solo, and everybody gets stunned. So that's a good move if you're in a group, like on the 4-on-4, and everybody's fighting in the center. You do ride the lightning, and then everybody comes in and just starts wailing on the other team. Very good character, very high damage. I've had a lot of luck with him. Background, he's 42, and of course he's from Bergen, Hordaland, Western Norway. So, this is the epitome of Norwegian death metal. Bio. When a musically gifted child named Steinar Foss grew tired of classical music and the world around, his somber state would guide him to greatness. At an accidental discovery of an illegal concert buried deep under a rotting cannery district in a corner of Norway, the young Steiner became beautifully horrified. Love that. Beautifully horrified. Love the juxtaposition of those two words. It was here that this journey to international fame and success would begin, as the black metal icon now known as Nilhogger. I'm going to have to reach out to Region E Racing, the guy that runs that podcast, because he's from Norway, and see how to pronounce this correctly. Now, a modified man, rich in anti-authoritarian motives, this beacon of blackness and musically driven augmentations bombards the ears of the world with the anthems of imperial end. How fun is this writing? It's just ridiculous. All right, next character. Gizmo. Now, this is the one, if you like Overwatch, this is the most Overwatchian character to me. It's a woman that has this, she's wearing a helmet that is like a teddy bear, as if it was like drawn in Mega Man. I don't know. Very bright primary colors. She uses a gun. So one thing that's a misconception of this game is that there are no guns in the game. There are. The difference is this is not a first-person view. You really don't have to aim. You can target with your characters. All right, so her specials. She has the Sucker Bomb. She sucks enemies in. She can deploy turrets, and then she has a fun one that's a jump pad. It bounces people. So if you're being chased, because she's not super high damage, she's just good at getting the turrets out and doing a lot of chip damage on the outside. But if you're being chased, drop a bouncer, and you're either going to bounce or the bad guys behind you will. Her specials include Rocket, which you basically ride around on a giant missile and go kaboom. Or the one that I see a lot is mini mech. So you jump in this giant mech suit bear monster and you shoot flamethrowers and stuff. You have a lot of armor. Background. She's from Broken Hill, New South Wales in Australia, born in 2038. On the edge of Australia, in a sweltering mining township, a father's heart melted when young Molly Gibson was born. He would call her Gizmo and walk the earth for her, and she would follow each footstep. The happy and curious Molly would soon emulate his engineering and construction skills, scavenging junk tech to invent and build endlessly with sometimes silly, but highly functional designs. At 13, she would win a prestigious bot battle competition, thanks to the skeleton key. And then came the self-augments. Along with her father's unbreakable realization, Gizmo was destined for greater things. And so he sent her to New York, the tech mecca, to build her legend and find the bleeding edge. So this is one of the younger characters in the game. She's 17 and will shoot you in the face. All right, next up, still in the damage range, what are the weirder characters? So one thing that's really fun about these designs in this game, they have some really odd things. Cass. Cass is a danger chicken, basically. It is a woman that has been augmented to be a bird. So she throws darts, and this is the character that's would be considered an assassin character in most of your MOBAs. Super low health, high damage. Okay, high risk, high reward kind of character. She can swoop in. She can rake, which is a combo that has no cooldown, and she can hightail it out of there. She can leap backwards and unleash a fan of blades. Now, her specials involve the dive bomb, so she could take to the skies, relocate, then plummet down on unsuspecting enemies, or do the blade dance. Here's her background. I cannot pronounce this. Goodness. Okay, 27 from Akademigorodok, Novosibirsk in Russia. So she's a Russian chicken. A once-in-a-generation dancer from affluent Russian lineage, young Cassandra Lebedeva had a life unlimited. With her mother as her muse, she grew into expectations as the world's premier ballerina phenom. Fun fact, side note, ballerinas... I'm surprised she's a chicken. Because the term ballerina, especially in like France, used to mean little rats. That they weren't seen as like a beauty related thing. So like when you look at Degas paintings, sorry, art side note thing. He's one of those people that started making ballerinas seem like they were beautiful in a sense and drawn in a very beautiful way. But society saw them as a very negative, ugly, almost usually orphaned kids that were really skinny and not, at that time, voluptuous women were popular. I guess, considered beautiful. Anyway, that was a side note about ballerinas. Now, despite the risks, her father sought to ensure success and administer unproven biotech advancement therapy within his company. His risk was rewarded, enhancing reflexes, agility, and sensory processing within the 12-year-old girl. Now, in this, she's 27. She's not 12 at this. Miracles unraveled until a single needle would rob young Cassandra of life as she knew it, and the use of her legs. Cybernetic appendages would replace the paraplegia, but not the disdain, and now her secret was out. The Russian government would seize her as an asset, a weapon, to spend the next 14 years as a lethal operative for Russian intelligence. Her life was no longer hers, but when her mother passed away, she was given a gift of clarity. She would take back her stolen life and flee to America to find family within the bleeding edge. So that's a fun story, too. Next up, probably one of my favorite characters, Maeve. Maeve is an older witch lady, cyborg witch. It does tell you how old she is. So she is would probably be in the assassin. She does a lot of chip damage, too. She has a lot of fun tricks up her sleeve, though. And one of her basic abilities is Schadenfreude. Killing an enemy instantly resets all special cooldowns. So lots of usage of special, but one of her things that are very important to use is the cage. You can trap anybody with the cage, which is really helpful to kill somebody if you have a lot of teammates around you, or to keep somebody from killing you. Also, she can vanish. She'll disappear and become invulnerable for a short time, and she can siphon life. Very good character. Not a lot of health, but can stay alive for a long time if you know how to use her. Her weapons, her specials are Peekaboo. You enter a cauldron and teleport to any visible enemy, stunning them. Or Toil in Trouble. Summon a ball of energy that explodes with spectacular damage. So here's her overview. She's 82, from Red Cross Wicklow, Ireland. And as a baby, little Maeve Murphy became transfixed in Ireland's nature. As a child, she would be dazzled by the land's history and mythos, the stories of witches and magic and mysticism, minus the nastiness. As a woman, Granny Maeve would spend her entire life in Ireland. And as an old age crept in, so did her sense of adventure. Carried by a hovering bauble, Maeve would float across the world, the beauty and the horror, all that is life. And there she'd find her mission in life, to fight for what is right, and she'd find that in the bleeding edge. Just a super fun character. Now, she does not have a board mount. She's flying on this giant ball, essentially. Really love this character. Just fun. She's got a floating hat above her head. Cyborg witch. All right, so we are done with the damage characters. We're going to move into the support characters. Now, it's mostly damage right now. The support characters are necessary. You're going to find most matches right now, especially in the early beta, which there will be another beta March I think 13th and 14th, you're going to need your healer. Now, the best healer I've found so far is Zero Cool. Zero Cool is, I guess, a teenager. He looks like he's a teenager. How old was it? 16. Okay. Yeah, he's a teenager. And he just seems uninterested in the world. He's sitting back in this chair. He doesn't stand and run. He's literally like on a flying chair. And he's playing on his phone and has headphones in. And, he's a teenager. So, but really good healer. So he has Recharge, which is a continuous healing beam whose power diminishes while active and recharges while inactive. A really good one is the Firewall. He drops this digital-looking wall, and it keeps attacks and projectiles from affecting him, basically. Then he has a bot that follows an ally and will basically do chip damage and fire at him. His specials, you can target an ally and they'll return to life if they're killed. But the one I tend to use is Upgrade Protection. It increases armor of everybody nearby. Really good for like knockdown, drag-out fights. He's from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and under the rusted roofs of Rio's ruins. Gotta love the alliterations in their stories. Like I said, the writers are having fun with their bios. A dust-covered toddler with endless energy named Musavi Zalev lost himself in his first video game and saw into his future. A life that would grow him into a tech prodigy, a phenom hacker, and finally a famed pro gamer under the mnemonic moniker of Zero Cool. With success at his fingertips, Zero Cool's newfound wealth feeds his impoverished friends and family, while his insatiable ego overeats off the supersized celebrity. Armed with self-designed augments, looking for a new game to dominate, the outspoken teenager wants more, and he'll find it at the bleeding edge. Edgy teenager, yeah, fits bleeding edge. Next one up on our supports is Miko. Now, this character, I'm still trying to figure out. She's a healer, but it seems like she's just really good at healing herself more than anybody else. So she does have a passive. Her staff heals a nearby ally, the nearest one with the lowest health. So she does heal. She has a chain heal move, but she can also heal herself with it, and the chain heal bounces off different characters. She has a really good shield, though, and she can freeze targets in place. Now, her supers involve Stalker, which grants stealth to all allies and reveal all enemies, which is really nice, and then Life Force, so she can channel a powerful heal on an ally. Background, she's from Eastern Cape, South Africa. She has a mask on, so you can't really see her face, and like some crazy bow staff thing. But despite being born into harsh conditions and relative poverty, Miko grew up happy in a loving extended family unit rich with their Zoha ancestral heritage. As a young girl, she mastered her clan's ruthless fighting techniques under her grandfather's guidance. She would endlessly educate herself in her people's traditions and rituals. But when Miko was diagnosed with a deadly new plague virus, she reluctantly left her family for the chance of a cure via experimental nanobot treatment. Little did she know what she was signing up for. They would augment her and encage her, torment and enrage her, but genetic resiliency would soon fuel a spirited Miko. She would have her freedom, and on escaping the HA facilities would be whisked to safety by a young man in a demon mask. They're talking about Damon, because he wears a demon mask, just in case you didn't catch it earlier. All right, fun character. Now, we're going to go to the last support character, and then we're going to go to the tanks. Last support is Kulev. Kulev is cyborg snake with a dead corpse. Yeah. So, this one has a passive heal, continuously heals nearby allies. So if you're this character, follow people around. But this is the one that has curses, because it's a voodoo snake, apparently. Or it's a cybernetic snake that's eating or wrapped around a voodoo zombie. I don't know, really. We'll find out in the bio, I'm sure, in a second. Here are the specials. Sacred Ground, summon a ward that damages enemies and heals allies. That's a scary move. That if you see Sacred Ground and you're on the other team, get away. You can have good omens. You can shield somebody. Or you can curse bad guys. So whenever you curse an enemy, they take increased damage from all sources. Supers involve Boon. You can empower an ally with bonus damage, speed, and defense. Or you can Bamboozle, which is mind controlling an enemy and bending them to your will. Very fun character. Kind of hard to understand, though. This character is 125 years old from Great Britain. Fun, fun, fun. The eccentric Dr. Ignatius Wright was a renowned professor of history at Cambridge University. So if it's hold on. This is the only character that was born in a time period we could be connected to. This character was born in 1930. All the other characters have been like born in the future, except for this one. And it shows because Home Dude is falling apart. All right, pushed by his passion in the culture of voodoo, Dr. Wright would travel the world absorbing the lore, perfecting the practices, and chasing immortality. And it worked until age 120. He's 125, remind you. In accordance with Wright's last will and testament, his subconscious was granted to friend and maverick computer scientist Sterling Taylor for experimentation. And it worked. His soul was digitized, reborn into data, and configured into an oddity. An automated snake that clumsily parades the mummified cadaver of Dr. Wright to feign inconspicuousness. It doesn't work. Officially considered deceased and ejected from his lifetime employment with the university, Kulov now seeks the services of kindred spirit Damon to join their common forces and extend the light and plight of humanity. So this is as if you mix Snakes on a Plane or Anaconda with Weekend at Bernie's and Cyborgs. So Terminator, Weekend at Bernie's, Anaconda, Snakes on a Plane character. And Voodoo. Yes, that's amazing. More games need this. Next up is tanks. Now, the tanks in this game, let me make sure I haven't skipped anybody. Yeah, okay, good. I got my tanks lined up. I'm going to start with the most boring tank first, and end with my favorite. The most boring tank is Makutu. Now, Makutu is a tank that is really good if you know how to use him correctly. So, he slaps people to death. He has two different stances. So, he can do a Papeke stance, or Papike stance, and cruises movement speed, or an Aura stance, constantly regenerates health. He can do a barge special, so he basically charges into people, picks them up, and slams them against walls. Really helpful if you know how to do this and you're with the team. You can also cleanse self and nearby enemies if you're using a Papeke, or you can heal yourself and enemy or nearby allies. Also, you can do repellent, which makes a burst of energy that pushes enemies away. His supers are Can't Touch Us, so you can make yourself and nearby allies temporarily invulnerable. Really helpful. Or Katamari. Is it like Katamari Damacy? You roll into a ball and barrel through enemies, knocking them away. All right, so this dude is from New Zealand. I think Region E is from New Zealand. I think I said the wrong thing earlier. I'm not going to ask the guy. I'm not going to ask him. I said the wrong country. Sorry about that. Anyway, I can ask him about Makutu then. All right. Here goes. As the only child of his mom's second marriage and the youngest of 7 brothers and sisters, Makutu always felt a little bit left out. Not because they didn't love him to bits, but because while they were all tall, strong, and athletic, he was just so very small. He loved to train in meditation with his dad, and he could school them all at fighting games or ping pong, but all he really wanted was to be big and tough and play rugby, like his siblings. So at age 16, with the support of his family, Makutu underwent augmentation. Makutu loved his new body. He felt like it finally matched his inner self. So I guess a little bit of dysphoria there. He'd go to the gym to pump iron, help out in the community, and of course, play rugby. But he always felt himself holding back, worried about hurting his friends or teammates. He needed a new way to test himself, a place to unleash his full unbridled strength. So basically, Makutu is little big man syndrome, but augmented in a cyborg. Honestly, I'm saying that is a very negative thing. But his character does seem like he has a lot of fun. He's always smiling. He kind of reminds me of I can't think of that. Disney cartoon with the Rock in it. Can't think of what it's called. Anyway, he looks like that character. All right, next up is one of my favorite designs in the entire game. Buttercup. Buttercup is, well, first of all, she's from Louisiana, so I'm cool with that, right? She is a larger lady, but she's a motorcycle at the same time. I love her design. Pink hair, it's wonderful. And her voice actor is really great. So she can hit things with saw blades. She's a tank. Moves really fast. She's can yank characters to her, which is really good if you have somebody running away from you. She can drop oil slicks if you're being chased. And she has a good area of effect move called Whiplash, where she's just spinning around whipping blades to damage enemies. Her specials are Burnout, an epic burnout that damages enemies and knocks them away. Really cool. And the one that I like to use is Turbocharge. She temporarily increases damage, lifesteal, and max health. Really helpful if you're in a big fight. All right, she's from Broussard, Louisiana. She's 38. Oh, she was born in 2017. Okay, so she was born 3 years ago. Bio, as Angelica Butters. Should I do this Southern? As Angelica Butters soared through gridlock atop her motorcycle, the sassy Cajun knew she had found her calling. It was her 19th birthday. Life was good, and also the last day she would walk again. After the crash, life would change for the one they called Buttercup. But love would rule. The religious community that raised her, the biking community, and friends and family would rally around her. But she still couldn't ride. So when she learned of black market augmentations, they could put her atop a chopper once again. She moved fast. But such augments were not accepted in the religious community, and so she fled atop her rubber wheel. She would live life on the southern road, doing crime to survive, fighting the foolish to make money to advance her makeshift augments. When the skeleton key was released, her modifications blossomed, and she knew she had to meet the stranger in New York City who had released it. Love this character. One of my favorites. Almost my favorite. Next, this is my second favorite, honestly. To the one. The last character on here. The one whose name I probably shouldn't say. El Bastardo. Gosh, this character's fun. So he wears like a 10-gallon hat. He's got dual machetes, or looks like Bowie knives. Not Bowie. If you're from Texas, it's Bowie. He's got a life support system that looks like a mustache. This guy's great. It's machetes. He uses machetes to hack enemies. He has life support, so as you're hitting and use your specials, you gain shield. He reminds me of Torvald from Paladins, with the, I think it's Torvald, who's a shield focus. He has a leap of faith, so he can jump over and knock people out. He has a death spiral, so it becomes a sword tornado, or a machete tornado, I guess. It spins around in a circle. And also he has something called Empower, which steals life from nearby enemies, granting energy to life support shields. His specials are Unbreakable. I use this one. This is my favorite one. He can't be killed for a certain time. I think it's like 5 seconds, but if you deal damage, it extends the duration. So that's a really good one. Also, Overload, his life support overloads, dealing constant damage to nearby enemies. So this guy is 51 from Juarez, Mexico. Born in 2004. Okay, so I guess I should have paid more attention to the dates. No one knows the dark past of the embittered, grim warrior called El Bastardo. Only fragments of this lone wolf story, half-truth and rumors exist. Some say he was the illegitimate son of Cartel Sicario. Others that he stalked Mexico's underworld as a one-man vigilante militia, or that he was once a decorated soldier left for dead by his own commanders and is now out for revenge. Only one thing is certain. Those who cross him in the arena must face a lethal whirlwind of blades and an unstoppable fighter who acts without mercy. By the way, he has pointy boots, which are amazing. Love the character design for this guy. The last two characters, Buttercup and El Bastardo, have some of the most fun design in a game. The one thing I was talking with somebody on the GW Discord was saying that he really enjoyed the character design because there are different body types in this game. It's not just like, models, essentially, which is really fun. So that is my overview of all the characters. Hopefully I didn't skip any by accident. But man, they're just fun. They're fun to play with. I've had a blast with the design, and it looks like they're hinting at another character too that'll be released soon. So if you played during the demo, you get or during the first week of play, you can get the Punk Pack, which includes various sweet-looking punk rocker skins for Nidhogger, Buttercup, and others, along with the Rioters hoverboards, stickers, and some fighter emotes. So let's get down to ending this. Is this game worth $30? In my opinion, absolutely. I really enjoy the gameplay and have had no issues with lag or bugs in the game. For a beta, it's really well done. The art style, the aesthetic on the game is really clean. The only thing that I would say is my major complaint is the levels feel a little too big. I think they should be either tightened up or allow for 6x6 or 8x8. So there's also, I think, a lot of room to grow with this concept. But I'm going to be honest, guys. I'm not buying this game. What? You just said this game was worth $30. Well, it's going to be on Game Pass. I'm not going to buy it if it's on Game Pass. I'm going to play it on Game Pass. This is a Team Ninja and Microsoft game. If you have Game Pass, which you should have Game Pass if you have a freaking Xbox One, go play it there. This game is going to release, I think, March 24th. Let's go on the website and look. I'm going to click the Bleeding Edge website. Let's see. They have another beta on March 13th. And then Game Pass members, you'll be able to play starting on March 24th. So you can play it on Xbox One, Windows 10, or Steam. Join me. Come to our Discord. Let's play some Bleeding Edge in the future. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to the Lamer Gamers podcast. Next week, we're probably going to have another solo episode. Rowdy's off every other week because of his job in the ER. So we probably won't be able to meet up again. But after next week's other side quests, we will have a February gaming newscast the week after. So our big monthly gaming newscast, get ready for it because there's a lot of stuff going on in February. So in 2 weeks, make sure you check that one out. Also, thanks to everybody that has joined us over on YouTube for Ring Fat Adventure. It's sitting well over 150 views now. It's pretty well received. I think we've had 11 likes on it. And people, it's been hours and hours of people watching it. Some people actually watched it. Now, we have gotten a lot of feedback from people. So we're going to be putting in a lot of that feedback in our new content on YouTube. Like, we'll shorten some of it and be more focused on different things. Because honestly, that Ring Fat Adventure video probably could have been split up into 3 different videos. But the problem is we're used to like long form podcasting. So we want to put everything in one place, and that's really not how it works. People that listen to podcasts and talk radio generally have longer attention spans than other YouTubers. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've gotten this far, I'm not insulting you though. Got it? Good. All right. So, all right, guys, I hope y'all have a great day and a fantastic week at work. Once again, thank you for listening to the official podcast of the Lamers and Working Class Gamers at the Lamer Gamers Podcast. Please share this with people. If it's on Facebook, like it, subscribe to us. Thank y'all for those people that we see every week are downloading the podcast. You guys are great. I am out. Have a good one.